Lieutenant Tendy grew up in a castle like frickin' Billups. Rutherford and Boimler are Mark twins. And high school friends always age weird, you know? Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc frickin' Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 4, entitled Something Borrowed, Something Green, written by Grace Parajani and directed by Bob Suarez. Very special thanks to Oliver James Manal for sponsoring this episode. We really appreciate you, Oliver James Manal. Thank you for sponsoring us. How you doing, Cirroc?
Yeah, thank you. Doing great. I'm doing great.
So,
how about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty darn well. I'm wearing my lucky red shirt. So you know that things are going to go well today. I should have worn green, actually. Come to think of it. First things first.
You would have blended
I would
right
have been one of the
background.
extras. I would have been carrying Tendy and T'Lyn and Mariner.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've always had a fascination with the Orions because they're like an Orion syndicate. Their whole thing is a syndicate. They're kind of like pirates. They're organized crime. They're like the Federation, because they aren't just a homeworld. They're also kind of like a big conglomeration or, their own empire. They're like a federation that's kind of run as organized crime. And they have not covered them a ton. The original series did a little bit, and Enterprise did a little bit. And I think that's pretty much it. Then we got a little bit in Discovery. Lower Decks is giving us a ton. We finally get to see the Orion homeworld. What'd you think of it?
Well, the animated version is kind of it's almost medieval, I would say, kind of in that kind of way. In that whole vein of like Lancelot and all of that kind of time period, I would say. That's what I got the vibe from it. But I did like getting a little bit, because it was funny how these guys write. I really enjoy the writing. I think it's very clever. And for example, Mariner says, "Wow, that's more backstory than I've ever gotten with your character," right? So it's like she's actually telling us this is a backstory episode for Tendy, which is it's a hilarious way to talk about it, right? To actually identify, hey, this is backstory. This is a backstory episode. So I enjoyed that, because that's one thing that I think this show does is it's very self-deprecating. It makes fun of itself and Star Trek as a whole. So I think hitting those notes is one of the best things that makes this thing work all the time.
Yeah, let's actually rewind for a second, because we got a cold open on Orions with the seasonal story arc, right? That ship that just comes and blasts people. Now, I was expecting to see it in this episode because we saw it at the very end of episode 1, the very end of episode 2, not at all in episode 3. So I was like, okay, are they just going to stop and then bring it back up later? So I love that they keep you guessing. They set up a pattern, end of episode, and then they kill it. And then 4th episode, beginning of the episode. So I love, just that they keep us guessing like that. We just get all confident. I remember for me after the 2nd episode, I'm like, oh, I guess they'll just be doing this at the end of every episode. And they're like, wrong, sucker, keep guessing. So I really like that. And it worked because it was an Orion ship, which happened to be taking place in an Orion episode. So this was just everything that I've ever wanted when it comes to Orions. Never expected it to be in cartoon form, but still, we got a lot of it. Risic was a character, we're like pirate adjacent, he says. It was just a lot of fun. Did you have any thoughts on that opening sequence? I mean, we knew when we saw that, we're like, okay, we know it's going to happen here. They're going to get killed like the Klingons and the Cardassians before them, or the Romulans, I should say.
The Romulans, yeah. What I enjoy about those scenes, at first, I think the Klingons were the first victim of this ship, this unidentified ship. And I didn't really understand it when I first saw it, right? I was like, well, what? Because I think it happened at the end of the episode, and the episode felt like it was over, and there was nothing more to watch. The credits are about to come on. That's my thinking, right? Okay, credits are about to roll, and it goes black, and then comes right into that scene. I'm like, whoa, what? Is there more to this episode? But here comes an extra scene that didn't have anything to do with the episode, right? It was the Klingons and their ship, and it wasn't a continuation of the story A and B storylines of the actual episode. It was a completely bonus clip of this thing. And at first I didn't understand it. When I saw it again with the Romulans, I enjoyed the humor. And I didn't really appreciate the humor the first time because I was like, what is this? So I didn't really click my head to say, what is the Klingon humor that they're using, right? It really clicked the second time on the Romulans when they started to say, I've been stabbing people in the back long before you were,
Oh, yeah.
So what it does, those scenes, gives me really an insight on like a day-to-day life of the crew of another ship. And what they're capturing very well is the interplay between those between those people of that same group of culture, species of whatever they are. You get to see the interplay between them. So, for example, in this one, I'm thinking I'm gonna get a tattoo of a rusty chain wraps around my leg and around my neck, and it's like, oh no, you're not really a pirate. You're pirate adjacent. So you know what I mean? This is their cultural kind of ribbing with each other, and everybody has it, right? Like all cultures have this kind of joking around with each other that they're able to do because they understand the culture that well, right? So they'll say, you're not really, you from Somalia,
Yeah.
you're not no Ethiopian,
Yeah, you're not Orion enough, right?
Yeah,
We get
right,
that.
right. So everybody has that, like a threshold of what's official and what's cool and what's not cool, or these may be like the lower decks. These are the lower decks of the Orion Syndicate, right? They're not high-ranking people.
Totally.
One guy says, she called him a treasure sorter or something like that. I'm more of a treasure sorter, than
Yeah.
So I thought those jokes were great, and I like the way they capture the vibe of the people, of the cultural kind of joking, the vibe between them. The Romulans did it with their jokes between each other and their stabbing of the back, and here was about them pirating and not really being real looters, but kind of pirate adjacents and plagiarists. You're a Ryan plagiarist,
Yeah.
So I like that. I like the banter between them.
No, it's funny that you mentioned the cultural thing. That's really what they do so well. In just 25 seconds, we get a taste of their culture, because all three of those little short stories were about what their culture is like, about not being Klingon enough. There's always somebody saying, oh, no, you're not Klingon enough, or you're not Romulan enough. Oh, I've been backstabbing people since before you were born. Orions are saying, oh, you're not Orion enough. And you're so right. We all do that. I mean, I'm a Frenchman, and I can't help but be a little snooty if a Canadian calls themselves French. I go, oh, what part of France? And they go, Toronto. And I'm like, meanwhile, I was born in San Jose, California.
Right.
But I still act like a little like, oh, right. You mean you're Canadian? And they're probably thinking like, you're American, bro. You calm down. You slow down there. But that's very true. And I love that we get a better sense of the culture of these races from the lower deckers than we do from, say, the bridge crew or the captain, because these are the ones that are really in the thick of it. They're doing the monotony, the day-to-day monotony, they exemplify the Orion culture because they're not a leader. They're not the bottom of the bottom. They're just the everyday person. So yeah, I love that about it, where we really get a sense. And I keep trying to guess who was going to be next. I think last time I guessed it was going to be Cardassians next. I definitely did not predict Orions, and I don't think anybody in the comments below predicted it. So everybody right now in the comments of this video, or if you're listening in the comments, make your predictions. What race do you think will be the next one? It could even be the Federation, for all we know. Yeah. Make your prediction. If you get the correct prediction in the comments below, then you will be right. Congratulations. But make that, I mean, you want those bragging rights. I want to see if anybody can get this. Yeah. I'm still sticking with Cardassians. I'm going to try them again.
Cardassians, okay. I'm going to throw a Ferengi guess out there or something to that effect. Yeah.
Oh, that's even better. You're so right. Ferengi definitely fits the tone. I would like to see that. Yes. Oh, because they can really go in deep on the Ferengi culture. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I would. And, you know, they're really good at ribbing on each other, too. So it's going to be all of that. Just, again, they have these cultural thresholds. Like, you're not Ferengi unless you want it more than I do. And you're willing to cut more throat than I have it, you know. So it's the same thing. And I think that's what they're doing a great job in these episodes. And they've also piqued my curiosity about what the hell is this ship? I'm actually now I'm like I want to know. And they've sold me on this future plot that they're eventually going to get to, where I'm curious now. What is this? What is it doing? What's the purpose? What's the mission? Is this from the future? What is this thing? And who's piloting this ship?
Yeah, you know, I heard that we're going to find out like who the story, you know, who the ship is being piloted by in season 6, actually. So it's going to be 25 more episodes of. Oh. No, just kidding. Where they're going to run. I mean, they're going to be like, okay, now we got a Denobulan ship. Oh God, what's next? Pakleds. We're species 8472 ship. What's their culture like? I don't know. We got to make one up. There's not really
exactly.
That'd be funny. I would love to see that though, where they just start to run out of ideas and they're just like come up with, okay, here's the Bolian ship. People are like, Bolians don't razz each other like that. They're just like barbers. They don't care.
The Tribbles. The Tribble ship. The Tribble ship.
A ship of Tribble. They're just like, and then boom, and it blows up. It's like 15 seconds at the most.
15 seconds of just. But there's you know, what is it called? Subtitles. Tribble subtitles. You know, so you get to see how they razz each other.
Maybe they'd be talking about like, yeah, they got their new fade or something like that. Oh, those guys. Well,
those Tribbles.
Let's move on now to the main chunk of this thing, because it opened up, I believe, on T'Lyn, Tendi, and Mariner, right?
Yeah.
And I thought when I saw that, my first thought was, oh, this would be a really cool crew if they had like a girls' night or a girls' mission. That was my first thought when it was just the 3 of them together. You know, your mind kind of wanders off to things. And I was like, oh, that would be really cool. And lo and behold, we get exactly. So I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't think of that. They planted that in my brain. They're like, look at how fun these 3 are together. And I'm like, I've got an idea. And they're like, do you have an idea? Or did you just get the idea we tossed your way? So I was very happy to see those 3 going together. And it seems like T'Lyn is not going to be a secondary character, like an addition, you know, like the 5th lower decker, but more like 5A. But no, she is fully getting as many lines and as much screen time as everybody else. She is absolutely a 5th main character, it seems.
Yes, absolutely. And what T'Lyn does is add a dynamic that I think is important in the pushing of these stories. I have in my notes that Talin is the adult in the room, right? So
Yeah.
they needed an adult there present to kind of either make observations that an adult would make, or just be the logical, rational person to say things like, "You guys are doing crazy stuff." Otherwise, everybody's doing crazy stuff because Tindy's pretty crazy. She's way out there, right? Nobody's going to put any kind of restrictions on Mariner. She's going to go and do whatever she wants to. Boimler, who's kind of responsible, still messes it up somehow, right? And puts his foot in his mouth or messes up something somehow. So they needed an adult in the room, somebody to be there to say what you would hear maybe from the higher ranking crew members, right? The bridge guys. I feel like she's almost an extension of Freeman, because Freeman can't be there hanging out with them in this adventure, right? Freeman has to be the captain. So they needed a voice like Freeman who's on the scene of these adventures. And I felt like that's what Talin is providing. Because there's just getting excited about not having anything to do is illogical. Like these kind of basic observations that she makes really helps with the contrast of building a storyline for me.
Definitely. Every comedy needs the straight man. Every comedy needs the straight person. So, and Star Trek always has that with their comedy, right? Kirk had Spock, right? There was always, and Bones had Spock. That was even more of a comedy a lot of times, right? Then you've got Picard, and the whole crew has Data, right? He's the one that goes, anomaly. I'm not detecting an anomaly, and Riker's like, it's a joke, Data, or whatever it is, And then they also kind of have Worf in another sense, And every show always has that straight person when it's comedic. Deep Space Nine had less of that, but it was less of a comedy. It was a little bit darker. It was a little bit more dramatic. But anyway, so Talin adds this dynamic for us, and man, are they good at writing for her, and her lines are delivered so well. I need to look up who that is that plays her, but whoever it is really nails it. Some of the lines are just because you can't imagine. Yeah. I don't imagine that a straight person's straight lines can be delivered in a colorful manner to make it funnier. How do you're the straight person, yet this lady does it. She still makes it funny. I mean, obviously the lines are written really well, but I feel like she still adds a little something to make it extra funny.
Yeah, it works. It works. I have to agree with you. You're pulling up some lines, and I want to see if you kind of wrote down the same ones that I wrote. Yeah, I want to know if they're the same ones. I want to hear your lines.
Yeah, the one that there were actually some that weren't just funny, but actually made me laugh out loud, which is a rarity for me. I usually only laugh out loud at my own dumb jokes, but sometimes somebody makes a joke that I'm like, wow, and I can't find it which one it was right now, but I will find it.
Well, I'll tell you the one that I like, and maybe this is the same one. It was when when the three of them were kind of going up to the castle or wherever Tindy lives, and she was like, "Oh no, we're only the fifth largest family in the syndicate. We're not really wealthy." And I love Talin's line when she says, "Orions like to downplay their wealth while still flaunting," or something to that effect.
That was a good
and I laughed at that one. I like that
one. Yeah, there are a bunch of lines there. Tendi says, "We're going to have to take pics in slave girl outfits," which was funny. But the one that actually made me laugh out loud was when those three were talking about Boimler and Rutherford and how they're super friendly. And Talin says, "Their emotional closeness is unpleasant."
Yeah.
And I don't know why. That made me laugh so. But I'm just like, she's so like cutting and sharp, just calling their closeness unpleasant. I'm like, damn, that's ruthless. She is
Yeah, yeah.
nasty, man. She'll cut you down so hard and so fast. But yeah, let me see if I can find a
Yeah.
couple. Oh, well, no, that was about Talin. But anyway, there's a bunch of these in there where Talin is just killing it. Oh, when they saw Mariner called that guy a hunk of ham steak. I don't know.
Yeah,
And
that's what I
Talin
heard
said
too.
he is aesthetically pleasing. I was like, all right, Talin, letting
Yeah.
her hair down.
Letting loose. Yeah, that leads me to Mariner too, who's like just so funny. Yeah, pretty nice hump dungeon.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, this is well. The Orions have they already have the lore written, so they're just exploring this lore of the Orions. They mentioned pheromones. I thought we had a whole discussion on pheromones with Dr. Muhammad Noor at one point, talking about ways in which you could control somebody, uh, you know. So I thought that was pretty cool, just the whole pheromones idea, which they did a deep dive in this episode as well.
Yeah, they explored the pheromones thing because originally in the original series, it was Orion slave girls. They would dance around and they had their thing, right? Then we find out later in Enterprise that the women are actually the ones in charge, and they have these pheromones that make the men, act crazy or do stupid things. And so the women they're not actually slave girls, they're actually, the ones in charge. They just act that way. And so this is taking that a bit further. You'll notice that like the mother's name was Warrior Queen Shona, and then the husband was
Yeah.
Bert.
Yeah, I saw that Warrior Queen Shona.
Mm-hmm. And then there was also like a lady with an I, Ingrita, who showed up, and she says, "All I have is my stink," and I was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
that was gross."
yeah.
That one gave me a chuckle yuck. Where I was like, that's funny and also gross, and also funny that you grossed
Unpleasant.
me out. Yeah. All I have is my stink.
I find your stink unpleasant.
Yeah.
says Talin.
And then she says, "Stop groveling, lick my foot."
Yeah, which is made me laugh too, because I was thinking, isn't that groveling?
Yes.
Stop groveling, like my foot. Yeah. These guys have fun with this episode. I had to look up a word because it was kind of went over my head, and I had to get into it, and I like to do my little research. And one of the words was something to the point of stop, don't get lascivious.
Yes.
So I heard the word lascivious, and I had to look it up, and it's a person, manner, or gesture feeling or revealing an overt and often offensive sexual desire.
Mm-hmm.
So to be lascivious is to express or reveal an offensive sexual desire. So I learned that watching this episode. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that word, I feel like I learned it a long time ago, heard it like one time, and that was it until today. I feel like this was maybe the second or third time I've ever heard that word used. But now we're going to use it every stinking day if we remember it.
Yeah, it's a hard one to add to the vocabulary, but it's possible when you do use it, though. No one else will know what it is. Stop being lascivious. Like what? What do you mean?
So, look, let's jump to our break very quickly. And then when we come back on the other side, We're going to get very lascivious, as we do, and people are going to get pissed, but it's all in good fun. So we will be right back. And also, I want to talk about that red lion face alien guy.
Yeah.
Actually, is a Red Lion like a restaurant? Now that I think about it.
Red Lobster. That's Red Lobster.
No, but there's also, isn't there a, let me see.
The Hotel Red Lion or something.
There's a tavern. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like there was a Red Lion. Anyway. All right. I know there's a Lions and a Red Lobster, but I thought there was also a Red Lion. Anyway, maybe not.
Coming soon on the other side of this break, Red Lions.
Yeah. Somebody's got like 3 red lions as part of like their crest.
Oh, that's Manchester United, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, good knowledge. Let me see. Okay, well, we need to stop about this 3 red lion stuff, but now I'm like super curious. We're just I don't know. Yeah, these guys. Scotland has 1 red lion. The Royal anyway, whatever. All right. We'll take our break. I'm going to keep Googling red lion stuff to try to prove to myself that I'm not losing my mind. And we'll be right back on the 7th rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
Here are the trivioids of the week. There were a lot of trivioids. I don't know why I was so excited with all these, but I was. All the diseases blocked by the transporter biofilter after last week's shore leave have been cataloged. One of the great things about being a lieutenant junior grade is it's actually possible to finish your work. Celebrating a lack of purpose is illogical. The great Tallinn line right there. Lieutenant Tendy's sister is getting married. Rutherford engineers in his sleep. Rutherford's squirming is so gentle, it actually lulls Boimler to sleep faster. Tendy grew up in a castle like frickin' Billups. Tendy's family is the 5th wealthiest in the Orion syndicate. Everybody knows Orion bridal kidnappings are done after the save the date and before the invitations. Rutherford and Boimler are Mark twins, and high school friends always age weird. Is that true in your experience? High school friends aging weird?
I don't know what they mean by that.
I understand it. I mean, like some high school friends, you can stay friends with them forever. And then some high school friends, you kind of drift off in different ways, or you kind of go like, that's how he turned out? That's, like for me, sometimes I look at people and I get so judgy. I'm like, damn, that's the direction he went. Okay. But I'm sure a bunch of people from high school are like thinking about that with me. They're like, that's what this guy did. What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of doing stuff, or maybe it's just like you have to stay friends because you're friends from high school. You're like bros, you're pals, but you're kind of like, this guy's weird now. I don't know. I guess I get it, but I still like the people from high school.
Yeah. I wouldn't categorize the word weird. I would say that you grow apart, and that the same things that you thought were the whole world to you and that defined your existence, they begin to change as you get older. Either go to college or go into the workforce or do something different. And as you start to change and grow up, you realize some of the things you were into, you're not into anymore. And I think that's the thing, grow apart in those kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I never grew up.
Huh. But if people have the similar interests and they do the same things as you, then you would stay contact. Like LeBron James still hangs out with all his high school friends, and they're all rich, rich like he is, because their interests aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean. So they stayed in connection with the same interests. If you're separating, your interests, start to disperse, and you're into piloting airplanes, and somebody else is into mountain climbing and being adventurous, like those kinds of things start to separate you in life. You realize you don't have the same things in common just because you both like Selena or something. It's like that's not enough anymore.
Like you and I, yeah. Oh, good old Selena. That is. Shout out to my good buddy Selena White that I've known since right after high school. Anyway.
But let me ask you, yes. Shore leave and the STD the biofilters. Is that what they were referring to? Like, people went for shore leave and caught some STD actions that we figured out how to get out into the biofilter.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember
that was the joke.
Right, the previous episode. I'm trying to be honest, I can barely remember it because I'm so focused on this one. But let me see. The
Cradle of Vexilon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really a direct reference to anything, because I'm trying to remember if there was any kind of illness, but I don't think so. I don't remember anything like that. So I think it was just more of just like a generic thing to set up the idea that she's finished this job from last week, and now she's experiencing for the first time being done. And she's just like, what do I do now? And Mariner, the ever wise Mariner, says, hey, what do you mean, what do you do now? This is the benefit of middle management. When you're done with your work, you can just chill for a minute. And so I think that was a fun little moment there where Tendi, they said celebrate. And then what's her name? T'Lyn says, what was her line? Celebrating a lack of purpose is illogical.
Okay, that was it.
Excellent.
I completely wrote it. I wrote it down a different way. I said, getting excited about not having anything to do is illogical. That was my direct.
You just translated it right there.
So if you ever ask me, say, what did he say? What I'm saying is a assessment in my interpretation of what I heard, not the direct quote.
So there was this Red Lion guy. I don't remember his name, but he said he was from. It was tough to tell where he was from. It sounded like he said, I'm from South Chownoth, but Boimler called him a Chalnoth. So I'm not really sure which one. We don't have the closed captioning with these, so I couldn't quite pick up what it is. But when I first saw him, I always try to figure out what alien it is if it's a rare alien. It reminded me of an alien named Baran from a 2-part Next Generation episode entitled Gambit. This guy.
So it was 2 parts?
Yeah.
So Baran.
Ah, this guy gets it. Yes. Very good. So, Baran, it was one of my favorite 2-parters, actually. It's kind of a very underrated one. Picard plays somebody named Galen. And this is Baran. And he looks pretty similar. Not exactly, but this is the guy right here. He's got very teased, late 80s, early 90s hair. He's kind of got weird ridges and bumps on his forehead. But see, the clothing is similar too. Kind of like this reddish brown, almost like leather armor stuff. I think that's very similar to that guy. So my initial thought was this was the guy. That was the race, but I don't know for sure. I would love for that to be confirmed. Everybody in the comments below, tell us, do you think that Red Lion guy from whatever place that ate the bonsai tree and drank the mister. Do you think that's the same alien as Baran? I submit that it's very close and probably is.
That character Baran, was that a female character in that picture?
No, that's a man.
Oh. I was gonna say because I was gonna say because maybe the male characters had the teeth that we saw with this red lion thing, because those teeth were pretty prominent.
Absolutely. I thought that was the one thing when I was like, hey, that looks just like Baran from Gambit. And I went and I checked and I was like, ooh, no, Baran's got no teeth, added in. So that was the one major difference. And you caught that very quickly. I had to compare with Baran to notice that. But
I definitely say the hair, the mane looked the same. I like that
clothing.
character. Yeah, and the clothing, yes. I don't know about you, but I couldn't tell if that voice was JG or not.
I thought the same thing. I was immediately like, is that JG Hertzler? Sounds very much like him, but not quite. And I checked in the guest voices. He was not there. There was one, I like to look at the guest cast and see if there's anybody fun or new. Yeah. And one person I did see that I really liked was Deborah Wilson. If you remember Deborah Wilson, I don't know which character she played, though, is the problem. It's tough to, they don't say who they played. They just say that she did a voice.
Mm-hmm.
She was like in
Tindy's mom, could have been the love slave Orion, the mistress woman from The Thing, the one that they play the cards against. I don't know. Who's Deborah Wilson, though?
Well, she, if I remember correctly, she did the voice for that Deep Space Nine episode called The Sound of Her Voice.
Yes, that's it.
If I remember correctly, but she was also like in Mad TV. It says here that she's done, that's right, she's done a few voiceover episodes for Star Trek Prodigy as well.
Yeah.
She's been all over the place. I did a project with her myself about 10 years ago. She's got great energy. She moves, and she moves. Like, she's really going. And I'm looking at her IMDb right now, and it's got 283 credits. So that just shows how busy she is and how talented she is.
I remember Deborah when she was on Mad TV, because I used to watch the Mad TV a lot.
Yep.
And it was a sketch comedy show, kind of like in living color.
Exactly.
And almost around the same time, I would say. But she did, if I'm not mistaken, a Tracy Chapman, I Got a Fast Car skit where she was kind of looking out of the window and making up stuff as she was seeing it. And so it was a play on how Tracy Chapman writes her music. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Deborah Wilson who was in that skit about Tracy Chapman, if I'm not mistaken.
That was a very popular song back then.
Yeah. But her voice was recognizable. I would say, if I had to guess which character she played, I would guess that she played the character that actually, to me, looked like the evil queen from The Little Mermaid, the original Little Mermaid. Ursula.
Yes.
I think is that.
Yeah, the lady in the Hump Dungeon, right?
Yeah, the lady in the Hump Dungeon.
I thought the same thing.
To me, like Ursula from The Little Mermaid, right?
Mm-hmm. She also had
the eyeshadow.
She had a little bit of Cruella de Vil to her too, as well. I thought her name was Ingrita, something like that. And that's my guess too. I think that may have been her. Could be wrong. Could be Tendy's sister, but it feels like Deborah Wilson could pull off that gravitas of the. Oh no. Didn't they call somebody Madam G as well? I can't keep up. There were so many
There was a lot. There were a lot of appearances. There was the sister, the mother, the keeper, the store owner of the Hump Dungeon. There was the friend who was also playing the biting game.
That may have been Madam G or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was Madam G or someone was. That stuff was with. We've got to touch on this. Mariner getting hit in the shoulder with a knife was hilarious because it happens once and you're kind of like, okay, tee-hee. It happens twice. Okay, that's funny because she's like, what are the chances it lands? But then the third one actually did make me laugh out loud. When she's nowhere near the frame or the picture, she's ducked in a corner. The knife ricochets. It seems to fall to the ground, but then Mariner stands up and she's like, "Are you serious? I'm hiding behind crates."
Yeah, she's like, "Are you seeing this?" That was, I was laughing on that little trope of the skidding stack because at first I was like, "No, that's cool. I'm totally good with the culture," because they were drinking in the bar. But she was like, "What are the chances in the same exact place?" The second time, the third time when the thing comes out, she's like, "All right, I'm getting out of here."
Yeah, your planet sucks. I'm going home. But one of these little added touches that they did that I thought was so funny and so smart, and this is like writing 101, writing comedy 101 to me, is not a word. She gets hit in the shoulder with a knife at the bar. She pulls it out, and somebody that works at the bar walks up to her with a used knife jar. Like, it happens all the time. Just walks right up. There's like 4 or 5 used bloody knives, and she just drops it in. Like, this is just the usual. They're in a bar. There's the used knife jar person. Oh, what are you working at? I'm working 7 to 12. I'm the used knife jar guy. Oh, okay. Cool. That's funny.
Knives. It is funny. Bert is funny. Just not Bert, Bert.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Anytime I see a person named Bert, I'm gonna like Burt Reynolds. You just got to use that one. Mariner's so good at delivering lines too. She had a line. She's like, "Yeah, and after that, can you take me to the oil baths that I keep hearing about?" Now she just heard about it once, right? But the fact that she says that I keep hearing about, I like how her comedy is. It's just really quick to me.
Here was another line that she delivered well along the same lines of last week when we were paying her compliments, which was, when you're acting in front of the camera and you are not saying something that's on the nose, whether you're being sarcastic or whether you're lying or whether there's subtext, you're able to do it with your body language. You're able to do it with, the look in your eye or the facial features. They can read it. But when you're animated, you have to deliver the line in a way that we hear the trepidation or we hear the sarcasm or we hear, the fear or the dishonesty. In this case, what Mariner said was, where did it go? Oh, it was when Erica shows up, pops out like a ninja pirate, and then Mariner goes, "Hey, we did it, case closed." In other words, she wasn't like actually enthusiastic, like, "Hey, we did." She's like sarcastically or kind of talking shit. She's like, "Hey, we did it, case closed. Okay, let's get out of here." You know what I mean?
Yes,
perfectly delivered.
She does that time and time again. The other one was like, "Hey, how did you get so good at the murder bug drinking game?" Just the way she delivers these lines, it's so. It sounds authentic to me. It sounds like this is exactly how you would say it in those kinds of situations that she says it. So I'm totally bought. But I wanted to get a little bit into Rutherford and Boimler. And I thought they made me laugh too. The Mark Twain stuff had me rolling.
Me too.
The whole Twain accent, I was laughing at. And the whole fighting over, like the little moments when he says, "Andorian linen, so breathable."
They have such great chemistry between them.
Oh, God.
There was a really good line when
they call themselves the Brotherford.
Oh, I know.
I love that line.
When they were leaving when they were getting called to the bridge, so they left the holodeck. Just a quick little throwaway line you can barely hear as they're walking out. Rutherford goes, "Why are vests so complicated?" like he's in there going, like, "Why is this so much to undo?" But yeah, the Mark Twain moment, that was definitely a highlight of the episode and of the season so far, because they were both just going into it so hard and so funny with all their, "Oh, sir, I say, sir," or whatever they were, Rutherford says, "You, sir, are as clever as an alley cat on his 10th life." And Boimler says, "I am but a humble crumb of the biscuit on your wits, sir." And the biscuit of your wits. What are they talking about?
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. I loved the Mozart stuff at the end too. I also like, I mean, I was rolling with the Mark Twain stuff. And then when they brought the lion character and he was like, "What's a bonsai tree?" That made me laugh too. The whole, yeah, it's delicate and this and that. Even when they were arguing over watering the bonsai tree, and he says, "Actually, I have an algorithm that knows exactly how many ounces of water."
And then when they struggled, he goes, "You misted me." Like suddenly, yes, I've gotten a little bit of mist. I could see Boimler being the kind of guy that like exfoliates hard, and then if like he gets a tiny bit of mist, he's like, "You've ruined my mud flap." What are those things that people put on their, like the mud skin face thing?
Yeah.
Those.
I just thought that was funny, and the whole eating of the tree and then drinking the mist water. Funny. And I think they can have more of Boimler and Rutherford playing this odd couple, like the odd couple situation, because I think that works really well.
Right. And they've set this up for the season to where they can't just say, "Oh, we set this up for this episode and it's funny," and then go, "Darn it, we should have kept that. That's funny." Now they can use this forever. They're roommates. This is the comedy, the gift that keeps on giving. They can revisit it anytime they want. They've set the stage. We're laughing already. We know what it is. So that was really smart to put those two together, because that comedy is going to keep on giving, I think.
Yeah. And on a separate note, I wanted to just give a little props to the artists who do all of the art in this. We've been talking to some of the directors and the artists that are affiliated with putting this show together, and some things are starting to pop out at me now that we've had these kinds of conversations about the process and how the art is made, from the storyboard to the final product that we see, and how many people get to put their little bit of 2 cents in here and there. And one of the things that I noticed in this episode along those lines was when they activated that ship that they pirated, that they stole at the end. When Tindy says, "Hey, you want to hotwire a ship?" or something to that effect. And she does hotwire it, and the lights of the console light up. As soon as those the console was lit up, and you saw the screens of all of the computers, it reminded me exactly of the Deep Space Nine. Because it was the same color scheme and the same exact layout of how we had it on DS9. So I thought that was just a small addition. Just putting that much detail. It could have been any ship that they used, but the fact that they decided to make it a ship that would have Federation kind of display graphics.
I noticed the art today too, and I'm thinking, like, did I just never notice this before? But it feels like this season's colors are more vibrant. Like they look like they're not just a red or a blue or a green. It feels like they are a glowing red and a fluorescent blue and a radiant green. Like when they're showing like ship engines or ship consoles or things like that, it just feels like it adds a dimensionality to it when it looks like there's a glow, when it looks like, there's a radiance to them. And I don't know if they were doing that in the previous seasons and I just never noticed, or if they've just stepped it up, but it really feels like the artistry is just big and bold and beautiful and bright now. I really noticed it was amazing.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. And I also I want to talk about the joke that they had. Number one, I love when Mariner says to Tendi, we all know you're a big nerd and not some hot assassin or something like that, right? And I just like that line. I don't know why. It just made me feel like the kind of comfort that you have when you're at a Star Trek convention and everybody's like, "No, we know you're a nerd. You don't have to be a hot girl or this or that. We'll just accept you as the nerd that you are. You know what I mean?
One
That's good
of
enough for
us.
us.
One of us.
Exactly.
Like the Deep Space Nine episode. There was also a throwaway line from Bert, who says, when they called Tendi over, and he's like, besides, there's also a box we need to get out of the garage. And I'm like, that is such a great little throwaway slice of life line where, parents always have a box in the garage that you gotta get this box out of here. It's been here since the Carter administration. Get it out.
Get that box out of here. I thought the joke about scanning was hilarious. Like, what is Starfleet always scanning? What are they scanning? Why are they always scanning?
Brilliant. I think that's brilliant because that feels so human, for lack of a better term, because it was an Orion saying it. But it's brilliant. These are such smart little lines where it's like, from her point of view, she's like, yeah, they're always.
She's like, I was busy.
Stuff.
I'm busy. I wasn't able to come visit. She's like, I've been busy. She's like, what? Doing what? Scanning.
Why are Federation always obsessed with scanning stuff? That's so smart. That's so funny.
Yeah, very good line.
Well, we're just about out of time here. Did you have one more thing you were going to toss on there?
Yeah, just on a little tiny serious note. I know we watch the show for jokes and for laughs, but there are some serious elements that they address in this episode. For one, they talk about gender roles, which Orion does have a big kind of reversal of gender roles, which is part of their backstory. So this does address that. It also addresses family roles, familial roles. Like that was one thing that did stand out to me as well. People who live in a family where there's multiple children, usually there's like that one child that's designated to be the one that's going to be the caretaker of their parents when they get old or something to that effect. And it just happens, I don't know, through natural selection or whatever it is, but it just happens to be like that. Or you're going to be the kid that becomes the athlete and, financially sets our family free. Like in the Michael Jordan case, for example, he's got a bunch of brothers, but they're not Michael Jordan. It was his destiny to be that guy to deliver his family in that kind of a way. And so in this episode, it was talking about that kind of a role that Tendi was facing, to be what she was groomed to be, which is this assassin for the Orions and be this badass pirate. But she abandoned that role. And they talked about a little bit about how the sister had to take on that responsibility. Even though she loved it and wanted to do it, it was still a conversation that hadn't taken place. And so I think even in the comedic way in which this show deals with issues, it still touches upon very serious issues that people deal with in their lives.
That's right.
Sometimes on a daily basis.
Comedy is usually the easiest way to broach those difficult subjects. For example, like you mentioned, the gender roles. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, which is, hey, if you watched how the Orions treat each other, i.e. how the women treat the men, if you found yourself not liking it, maybe consider what it might be like if the roles are reversed. So that's always an interesting way to point things out, is to just show things kind of reversed. And if you feel some type of way about it, well, then maybe you should feel some type of way about it every time.
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah,
Exactly.
that's a really good point about that they still do bring up issues. They just do it in their Star Trek Lower Decks fashion.
Absolutely.
All right. So everybody, here it comes. People that we love and appreciate, except for Homer Frizzell. We'd like to thank Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom TJ, Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin, Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Marcia Classic Schreier, Greg K. Wickstrom, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Oken. Thank you all very much. That's it for us, right?
That's it. I was hoping you would do those names with the Mark Twain accent. That would have been, I would have loved it.
I just don't have that kind of talent. I wish I did. I haven't studied that enough. Like they kind of sound like Foghorn Leghorn. The guy's like, I'll say.
It's a little bit of that,
right?
A little Elvis-y Foghorn.
The best I could do would be to watch this Lower Decks episode again and do an impression of Boimler and Rutherford doing an impression of Mark Twain. That's the best I could do, I think. Which isn't good.
Oh, well, that'll be good. I'm just a humble crumb on the biscuit of your Trevor.
So you too, I guess.
Yeah, I have to study. I have to study too.
Anyway, thank you all, everybody, for joining us. If you are good in the comments below, if you are good at these Mark Twain type accents, please leave us a comment below in that accent, and we will judge who is the best at typing words with that accent. So we'll see, and we'll have a winner next week. Anyway, thank you all for joining us, everybody, and make sure you like this video, you subscribe to the channel. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. Remember, we have everything, all of these episodes on the 7th Rule 2, wherever you find your podcast. So go check those out. Or if you're listening in, you can check us out on the 7th Rule on YouTube and watch all of these. We have the 7th Rule and the 7th Rule 2. Subscribe to both those wherever you get your podcasts. That's it. We'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th Rule.